Welcome back to another episode of the Insight NFL Fantasy Podcast. I mean, Mav, just you and me tonight, mate. We're back. It's Wednesday. We're slowing things down with a little Dynasty primer tonight, giving some love back to the Dynasty people, even though we can get caught up in the redraft madness this time of the year. It's always good. I mean, we've all got Dynasty teams around. It's good to kind of reset and, look at what's to come at this point of the year. How are you feeling when it comes to, just general Dynasty at the moment? Do you have many teams on the go? What's the kind of movements looking like in those leagues?
Yeah, so I've got 4 Dynasty leagues currently going at the moment. 3.5 of them are at the pointy end. I'm not sure if our Insight Dynasty League, if I'm up there or not. I mean, I was a playoff team, so I think I was top 4, so probably, but yeah, I don't know if I'm a real chance, but we'll see how it plays out. But yeah, no, Dynasty. Look, there is a lot of startup leagues starting at the moment as well. Keep that in mind. Guys who are just beginning their journey with new leagues starting up, and I tell you what, it's definitely a wild ride, especially when you get deep into it after a few years. It really does start sort of going on a different beast. But we'll try and sort of identify all things Dynasty tonight, just as a little primer, and yeah, just go from there, I suppose.
And I've got to ask, are you more so of a Dynasty fan over redraft, or what's your taste there?
It's a great question.
It is a good question.
It's a great question. It's more. I love the dynasty aspect of fantasy football. I sort of love the realism of bringing your rosters across, and and only way to make changes to your teams either by trading or drafting. So it's got a bit of a real life aspect to it. Redraft's always good because draft day is so fun.
Sure.
You go through 13 rounds of 14, 15 rounds, depending on how long your league goes for, of drafting. And that's always great fun, especially if you're in a group of mates as well. It's always, a live draft's always great fun. But I do have a real soft spot for the dynasty football aspect of fantasy. And it probably is my favorite, to be honest.
I'm with you there, mate. I feel like it's for the D-gens, that's just our bread and butter because it's all year round. I mean, I've got Dynasty teams. I'm looking at them all year round. Like you said, the rookie draft that comes up just adds a different layer of hype when it gets to that point of the year. And yeah, you can't go
Even
wrong. It's
when
just a rabbit hole.
Even when free agency comes around, you get a few guys that you're still on your roster that you're hoping signs new contracts or gets a good landing spot somewhere else. Like there's so much that goes into a rookie draft because you might have picks in it that you might be really into that draft, or the other way around, you've got some guys that are going to be free agents and looking to get some good landing spots. I mean, if you're a Derrick Henry owner, for example, 2 years ago, you were sitting there hoping he'd end up in a really good spot, which he did. But that's the risk that comes down to at the dynasty side of things as well. He could have ended up in, I don't know, anywhere else, I suppose.
The Saints, yeah.
Yeah,
probably the worst one.
Anywhere.
And yeah, and Ravens, looking at it, that was definitely the best fit for him at the time. But before we jump into the Dynasty Primer tonight, just look back to last night's show. We did have our draft strategies, tips and tricks where we kind of covered in a few little tips just to get you prepared for your upcoming redrafts, and also dove into our top strategies at the moment, things that we kind of do during draft time to give ourselves an advantage. We also did have Whisperer special guest last night as well, so it was good to get a different take on a few things. But with that being said, mate, it's great to have you back here. Just the two of us. How'd you feel about last night's show? And yeah, I mean, redraft. We're so flooded with redraft leagues coming up at the moment. You've got your league all filled up for the Insight League. So how's that all kind of panning out?
Yeah, it's going really well actually. Really, really well. As you said, we've filled up the league. I think 8 or 9 members have currently paid, waiting on myself and Mick. So 2 unreliable guys right there. Supercoach Horse if you want to go deep into it. But yeah, so a really good start. I believe you've created a league tonight that's now up and about. So yeah, firm into leagues getting created and getting them filled, and drafting season will be coming up very shortly.
Absolutely, yeah. That league I've made tonight, it is a 1 quarterback league, just to switch it up a little bit, trying to pair in with our 1 QB mock at the start of the week. Currently 3 spots, so looking for another 9, but I'm sure that'll fill up very, very quickly. So if you are looking and you are frisky and interested, the best thing that you can probably do to gain access is join our free Patreon. Those guys are going to have probably preferred chance to get in there. And also if you're a part of our WhatsApp group, which is all free, mind you, those guys are getting first crack at that league. So definitely going to be a good one to fill out, one QB to mix it up, and also start 3 wide receiver as well, which I know can be a little bit gross, but I just want to mix it up a bit, put the wide receivers on a pedestal for this year and kind of see how that plays out.
Yeah, different formats are always a good way. I mean, I like the old stock standard super flex league. You have 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and 2 flexes. That's always been my my go-to fantasy league, and which is the one that I've created for a 12-teamer. That's that format that I've ran with, but I will end up creating another one as well. That will be, I don't know, maybe a bit more deep. We'll see how it ends, and this one will be pretty much open to the Twitter land and anyone else who wants to join in. So I don't know, we might make it $25 buy-in or something like that. I'll work out the behind the scenes of that, but we'll start creating some more leagues and get people involved and get some stuff happening.
And there will be a couple of free ones too, mind you. I know I'll look to make one myself. We might have a first prize is unlimited access to the Patreon for Insight. You'll gain access to all sports. That'll be a good one to kind of have and see how that plays out. But looking forward to this week. So yeah, we are Wednesday, Dynasty Primer. Tomorrow we've got a preseason preview with those preseason games kicking off on Friday. Very, very spicy when those kick off, and there's going to be some good matchups. I know I was watching Shador Sanders poised to start. That will be interesting to see how that plays out. I'm actually going to be looking at his 2+ passing touchdowns as a little wager on that one, just to be gross. I know you probably shouldn't bet on preseason stuff, but I'm nasty with it. I'm a DJ with it, so we'll dive into that. But before we jump in here, Mav, a little bit of news and training camp buzz. Probably the most talked about at the moment was the Kyren Williams extension with the LA Rams. Running back for those guys did sign a 3-year extension, and by all accounts, it was trending towards its direction for the last month or so. They finally got the deal done. 3 years, 33 mil, and then 23 mil guaranteed. And on paper, I think this is probably a very fair trade for both parties. I know DFAB and myself, we kind of see little different sides on this. We had a little debate over on X. And while I'm on that, you can find me at Mullin_FF, Maverick at IFS Maverick, and DFAB is at DFAB Insight, I think. So jump over on there, kind of give us a little thought of what you think of how that kind of went. But what are your thoughts on the Kyren Williams extension that just landed?
Man, I loved it. It was good to see a deal done. And look, it cost them nothing. Was it $11 million average per year? I think it was, and what, $28 million in guaranteed. So he's nearly got a fully guaranteed contract. Look, he's probably a top 7, top 8 running back in the comp, and it's just a win-win for everyone, I suppose. He got his money, which he probably should ask for more realistically. I mean, he probably should have asked for 45, 50 mil, somewhere in that bracket. He's worth that sort of money. He's a touchdown machine. So I was really surprised that deal got done. Weeks out from the season starting. That was obviously good to see, but it also affirms the way that we now know he's not going to hold out. He's not going to. He's got some security now, obviously, and guys like Jarquez Hunter and Blake Corum of the world. Yeah, they're the RB2s, but who cares? It's Kyren Williams season.
Follow the money. And it'll be curious to see how the James Cook situation pans out because of this, because I think he was asking for 15 mil, but seeing this deal come in, I think that just kind of shoots his chances to try and get that kind of cash. But I mean, that was probably the biggest.
I think Kyren Williams is actually better than James Cook personally.
More reliable. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, James Cook, look, they're probably very similar, but if I had to take one, I would probably take Kyren Williams. So yeah, if you're going to compare the deals there, I don't know if James Cook's going to settle for $10 to $12 million a year. As you said, he's probably more looking at the 15+ market, which doesn't seem like it's going to be likely.
Yeah, and I mean, looking at it with Dynasty, we are on that topic. This was a big question mark for Kyren and a lot of running backs is whether or not if they can get that second contract. And he's made that mark. He was a late round pick. I think he was 5th round or so to overcome that adversity, which usually doesn't happen for guys in that state. Really, really good to see. And I mean, for Dynasty, I've got a couple of shares, Mav. I'm not too sure about yourself. We've got to be feeling pretty good about that Kyron Williams extension. But on to the next thing. And one thing that we pretty much knew was coming in the last couple of months. Jordan Addison suspension has finally come in. 3 weeks, which was pretty consistent with previous incidences in the NFL. I've got a question for you, Mav, on this. Who steps up as the number 2 target behind Jefferson for the wide receivers? I know number 2 target overall is probably going to be TJ Hawkinson, but are you on the side of Jalen Naylor, Ty Felton? I don't even know anybody else. Honestly, that's on that depth chart there. So what are you kind of thinking in that regard?
I mean, Hawkinson gets a big boost. That's probably the one that will definitely shine the first 3 weeks of fantasy football, depending on, I suppose, the level of where JJ McCarthy's at as well. And he's meant to be playing in the preseason coming up. So we'll know straight away where he's at. But yeah, outside of that, it's probably a coin toss, man, to be honest with you. There's probably no fantasy relevancy in any of those players that you mentioned. Yes, they might have a good week here and there, but for betting purposes, it might be fantastic, taking an anytime touchdown or anything like that, or yardage. They might have low yardage one week. You might go overs and something like that. But, outside of that fantasy relevancy, it's probably not anything. Well, there's nothing in it, really.
I think actually looking at it now, a little sneaky thing, we usually see when wide receivers go down, the running backs kind of get an uptick in targets and receptions. So Aaron Jones, he is that pass catching back for that team compared to Jordan Mason. So he could get a bit of a bump over those first 3 weeks. But yeah, going to be one to watch. Another exciting one for fantasy, Keenan Allen has signed with the Chargers on a 1-year deal, just over $8 million. And looking at this, I wasn't too sure how to feel. I don't think it really affects Ladd too much. I saw a stat just before when Ladd was lined up outside, his yards per route run was like 3 point something, which is just, for reference, 2 is probably a good level where you need to be, and 3 is just nuts. So I don't really think it affects him much. If anything, Herbert gets a bump up, and it might be telling us that they want to throw the ball a little bit more. You sound pretty excited with that one, Mav, that Keenan Allen is back on the Chargers.
Yeah, I mean, look, for Herbert's sake, absolutely. I think, he's currently going at QB 12 to 14 at the moment. I suppose just in general, 1 QB leagues or in Superflex leagues. So, I mean, Herbert was, he came into the injured last year, I believe, and now this year he's primed, ready to go. He's got a really good receiving core, man, like a really, really solid receiving core. Keenan Allen, they paid him some decent amount of money. It's only 1-year deal, but they paid him $8 million. So they've obviously got a role for him. Which, he knows the offense already. He's been there before. He's spent the majority of his career there. So he sort of knows how it all works. But, mate, that's a really solid offense now. A really, really good offense. You've got Ladd and Keenan Allen, Trey Harris, the rookie, Quinton Johnston, if he can sort out his drop problems. Look, he's still a deep ball threat. But, still needs to protect the ball in his hands. And then obviously the running backs are quite solid too. The only thing they probably don't have is a tight end. But that's fine. When you've got so many good receivers there, it doesn't really matter too much. So this is going to be a really fun offense to watch, man. It really is. I'm looking forward to watching the Chargers play this year, and positive for Justin Herbert, especially for fantasy football. He gets a real big bump in my rankings now due to this signing. And look, it probably wasn't a surprise. It was always going to happen. I'm surprised it took this long, but Keenan Allen is going to be a solid player for this team.
Definitely the best landing spot, I think, for Keenan Allen. Looking at it, like he's got that connection with Herbert already, but with Herbert getting the win, we've got to identify some of the losers here too. And with it being a dynasty show, Trey Harris, rookie that was drafted in the 2nd round, his value has taken a hit. Maybe even a little opportunity to buy if you are a Trey Harris fan, because I don't think he's going to impact him a whole lot, especially later on in the season. I think Trey Harris could probably eclipse. And old man Keenan Allen, he's 33, pushing 34. But he didn't really look like he missed a step last year. 70 receptions, just over 700 yards and 7 TDs. with Caleb Williams, and that offense was a train wreck as a whole. So could provide some
commanded
sneaky
targets though. He commanded targets, and he had a very high target share too. So for a guy who's that old, it's going to be fun to watch. Yeah, look, as you said about Trey Harris, absolutely. Look, they might still play 3 wide receivers. Well, they'll still play 3 wide receivers. So Trey Harris will be on the field a bit, but what's his snap percentage? Is that going to be under 50%? Probably. And yeah, limited opportunity, I suppose. He needs an injury. Hopefully it's not to Lad or, well, Ken Allen, I suppose. It doesn't matter too much. Obviously, I'm not saying we want him to get injured. I don't wish injury on anyone, but at the same time, he's going to need an injury for a bit of opportunity.
Yeah, for at least to start the year, for sure. And the last little piece that we've got here, Mav, so Juwan Jennings for the San Francisco 49ers, he's still missing camp with a calf strain. I think he's missed probably the whole last week with it, and it's opening the door for Ricky Pearsall. I've been seeing so much hype over Pearsall over the last couple of days, and further building on that chemistry with Brock Purdy. How's this one kind of looking? I know these guys have been flip-flopping off-season with the injuries. They're going around the same place in terms of ADP. Are you more so leaning towards Pearsall now, or are you still just kind of hanging out, see how the remaining time of training camp goes and go from there?
Well, it's a concern because it was the same calf that he hurt in the OTAs. So there's obviously some real concern there. We don't know how long he's going to be out for. It could be a month. It could be 2 weeks. There's no real update in terms of he's day-to-day on the injury report for training camp. But reality is he's going to be out for weeks, man. And he already has been out for a week. So Ricky Pearsall is taking massive strides at the moment. And he was at the end of last year. I mean, we saw him in these last 2 or 3 games that he played. It was just monstrous. And we saw that potential there. They got George Kittle in the house is probably the number 1 option. They got CMC, who, we all know his injury history, I suppose. But, outside of those 2 options, they still haven't got a number 1 wide receiver. Ayuk's out injured. He'll be out for at least half the year. And then you got, Juwan Jennings out off as well. So Ricky Pearsall is, he could be the guy, man.
He's in the driver's seat, and I mean, boy, did he give us those last final weeks. I think he had like 140 receiving yard game, couple tutty game as well.
Against Detroit was the one. That was the one where you saw, shit, this guy is really a solid, smooth route runner.
Yeah, he's definitely. He can do it. He could fill that Debo role. He could fill that just primary receiver role as well. He is slick with it, slick Rick. So yeah, it'll be good to see that one.
Shanahan offense too. He's probably going to get a few, dump offs in the backfield and like screen plays, and how Shanahan likes to play. He loves to play a bit all over the shop and get a bit magical with the offense. So, Pearsall's good with ball in hand. So I'm excited. He's going in 7th rounds at the moment. It's really good value, I reckon. He's definitely one to get around that ADP at the moment because again, we're talking about breakout potential, and these sort of guys can either win or lose you a league, I suppose. But I would take the risk.
And even looking at and I feel like I'm definitely going to be saying this a lot tonight, like I already have in Dynasty. Are you still trying to trade for Pearsall at the moment? Because looking at it now, it's going to be the cheapest that you're probably going to be able to get him from now until the season start.
Mate, I've pretty much nearly owned him in every single Dynasty league that I'm in, so I can't really trade for him when you own him. But if I don't own him, definitely. I mean, look, do you get him for a 2nd round pick? Probably, depending on where your team's at. It could be a back end 2nd that you're trying. You try and pay 2 seconds just because you're in the window. There's so many ways you can do this. But God, man, he's definitely one that could boom. He could be a my guy, actually.
Sneaky little teaser there, Mav. And my guys will be dropping next week. Not too sure. We won't give away the day just yet, but that is coming. And hey, Mav could have just given away one of his 3 guys. So we'll have to wait and see how that one plays out. Now, jumping into tonight, Mav, Dynasty. It's a beautiful thing. Like we were talking about, it's our favorite out of all the league formats. But with Dynasty right now in the middle of redraft hype season, I know for me, I've probably got a few too many Dynasty teams, so they're all kind of in different places, which can help I guess different journeys that you can kind of go down. It's not all you're not all going for the win. You can be rebuilding, or if you're kind of a middle of the pack team, how can we identify what type of squad that we have in these leagues, and what do you kind of like to do when you're looking at your dynasty team at this point of the year?
Yeah, so if you think you're middle of the pack, for example, and you look at your squad, your starting squad, and it's old, then it's probably time to burn it down and start again. Try and get if you've got Devontae Adams and Tyreek Hill and I suppose Keenan Allen, let's put him in there for the sake of it. But guys like that in your starting lineups, you have multiple of them. Derrick Henry's another one, for example. Alvin Kamara would be another one, for example. Like guys who are they got a bit of juice left in the game, but not enough to get you to that next level. That's probably the time where you start burning it down a little bit and try and get as many picks in as possible. Because you can fast track rebuilds when you get multiple first round picks. You could hit all of them and it changes the dynamic of your squad. But again, if you're in the window as well, depending on how good your squad is, I don't mind trading picks around to try and get better and try and sort of make sure you get a bit of depth as well, and try and steal players away from other contenders that might hurt you down the line. Because if you think that you're in the window, someone else thinks they're in the window too. So they'll obviously be making moves to try and get better on the way. So you always want to try and steal players who are on the trade block away from your competition. If you're in rebuilds, then just continue to stockpile picks. I don't mind trading a 101, for example, for multiple firsts. Try and get more in. I don't mind trading away players that you think aren't going to be your future for more picks as well. It depends how you go about it, but rebuilding is very crucial in dynasty football, because if you don't rebuild at any point, you're never going to get back up to the top. Being in the middle is the worst possible spot you can possibly be in, unless you've got a young team that's going to go to that next step. That's when you go, okay, cool. I'm fine with having a mid team at the moment because I know there's going to be some upside in 6 months.
And I think just going back to that really first step that you touched on, you have to really be honest and unbiased with your team. I know we all think that we're going to be in the driver's seat. We all think our team's in a better contending spot than what it really is. I like to look at the lay of the land, look at the whole league, all the different rosters, and really kind of rank myself. Where do I sit in the pecking order? Do I have a realistic chance to actually win the title and not just fumble my way into playoffs? Because you're right, you sit in that meddling spot. You don't do anything in playoffs, probably first round exit. Your draft pick the following year, if you still have it, isn't going to be anywhere near as good as you need it to be to help improve your team drastically that following year. So be honest with yourself. Don't kid around. Kind of rank where you are there, and then you can go from there. Do you consider, if you're at the bottom of 3, you probably need to rebuild and start looking forward. Like you said, stockpile on picks. I like to look at young wide receivers and also quarterbacks to kind of build my team around. But if you really want to rebuild and do it right, you have to tear it down to the nubs, because that's where you're gonna solidify your chance to get the number 1 overall pick the following year. And if you need a whole lot of help, you can, like you said, further trade those early picks and just get more and more capital stockpiling. And I guess, Mav, one thing to ask, when rebuilding, I really only want to see it as a 2-year window. If I'm rebuilding for anything longer than that, you're shooting yourself in the foot, especially if you've got paid leagues, you're just paying more and more, you're just donating, just sacrificing that money to get your team back on track. So you want to try and do it in the quickest and most efficient way possible. And the best way to do that, getting those early picks, getting more of them, and staying in tune. You've got to keep up to date with all the dynasty and all the changes that are happening within the NFL. That the league fluctuates so crazy. Like you said, free agency towards the start of the year, just after the Super Bowl, that can change up everything. The rookie draft, if you can stay locked in with that. I mean, looking back 2 years ago, that draft with Malik Neighbors, Brock Bowers, I think was in that class too, Marv, BTJ. Looking at that first round, you could have easily hit, if you had 3 picks in a rebuilding team, an early pick, you could have hit on Malik Neighbors within the top 3, or even Jane Daniels in Superflex. In the middle of the pack, I think Brock Bowers was going around 106 to 108 range. And for the really lucky people, Brian Thomas Jr. was kind of slipping towards that back end of the first. So, I mean, if you had 3 first-round picks and you were lucky enough to get all those 3 guys, completely changes the whole landscape of your team from a rebuilding perspective. Now, when it does come to contending teams, Mav, looking at it now, I mean, we were chatting about this a little bit earlier. When is the best time to kind of trade for these vets? I know deep into the season, they might cost you a little bit more. What are you kind of looking at? And can you throw in a couple of vets that you are looking for if you are in a contending team that you can pick up on the cheap?
Yeah, it all depends on what the cost is, I suppose. And the cost will always fluctuate throughout a year. It will never be the same price tomorrow is always a good term to use. But today's price will never be the same price tomorrow. So, you try and find a couple of down weeks in a row. You try and find the trade window when the other player gets a bit desperate to trade. You go, shit, well, no, if the trade window's tomorrow and the deadline's tomorrow, well, I'm going to have to move him today. So, the league goes, oh, shit, I'm not going to move anything more than, a second round pick. So you swoop in and try and get him. So, look, it's probably never a perfect time to get veterans in. Look, it depends on who you're trading with, first and foremost. If you're trading with a guy who's bottom 3, bottom 4 and looking to rebuild, then I suppose you're going to have a good window there and then. If you're looking for a mid-pack guy who's overrating his roster a little bit, still thinks he's a chance, then he's obviously going to pay a bit more to try and get these sort of guys. Mike Evans, for example, is going to cost more than what you think he'd actually cost. So you just try and get these guys on downer weeks and sort of strike when the iron's hot at those times. I know you're a fiend for that sort of stuff, and that's why I don't like you. It doesn't matter what their age is; you just try and get them down when they're at the bottom point, and go, oh well, fuck, Jalen Waddle, he's worth a second round pick. I'm going to try and try my luck, but you're not going to get me like that, mate.
Honestly, some of the time, Mav, I just shoot out trades that are just below market to you in particular. I just want you to send me a message back, man. I just want to get a response from you.
Just go fuck yourself.
Even if it's that, I'm happy to see. But yeah, I think one of the good things that you did touch on there, and I just want to kind of reinforce that. If you are contending, you do want to try identifying your trade targets. The best guys to look at are those rebuilding teams. One thing that you probably should do with contending teams, or one thing that I know I try and be a bit mindful of, I'll try and hold on to my first and second round pick if I can until I know that, say, halfway through the season, week 6, week 7, I'm in a pretty good spot. Might be 4-2 or 5-2, and I know I'm just a couple of pieces away. I have a better idea that my first round pick is going to be towards the later end, so I'm more than willing to give it up. And then from there, I'm 1 or 2 pieces away, I'm happy to offload those picks. And when you still have those picks at that point, vice versa, there's going to be rebuilding teams at that point of the year that are 2-5, 0-7, for instance, and they're going to be willing to move off their vets more willingly, especially for those first and second round picks if you still do have them. So yeah, I think that's a good thing to touch on. And I don't know. Yep.
So in 2 of my dynasty leagues, I won the chip and still retained my first rounder.
That's why you're an expert, mate. That's why you're an expert.
If you can, first rounder got me? Caleb Johnson. The rich get richer, mate.
The rich get richer. That's what you have to do as well. If you can somehow manipulate it, like Mav, he's a master manipulator when it comes to Dynasty. If you can put yourself in a position to do that, and still have those picks, I mean, then April comes around, rookie draft, you're in an absolute prime spot. You don't even need to make those picks, but if you're in a position you can get a guy like Caleb Johnson, you'd much rather just take that, but you can move those picks in the draft when the iron is hot too, and those draft picks are worth a lot more. You can move it for a more established player that you know is going to benefit you in the long run. But Mav, I just want to ask too, what is your kind of, I mean, I'll throw a couple at you first just to see what you think. For my contending teams, a lot of them are running back needy for the most part. I feel like that's just kind of a common thing. Running backs get injured all the time. They're the most volatile position. James Conner has been a really big target for me. I know there's that ambiguity around Trey Benson stepping up, and it's going to be looking like a bit of a timeshare, but I think James Conner, until he gets injured, he's just a bit too good, a little bit too better than Trey Benson at the moment. And the Arizona Cardinals have such a soft schedule to start the year. So, I mean, I'm throwing out I've got a deal done for a 2026 second, projected late, but James Conner, you think about it from the rebuilder's point of view. He's a 29, 30-year-old running back. You're rebuilding. You just want to kind of gain those picks and get those points off your roster. With James Conner in mind, what are some kind of other names that you're kind of thinking you can get at a low point that are going to add some serious value to your contending team?
I mean, look, Derrick Henry's always been one that I've targeted in the last sort of 18 months, 12 to 18 months, depending on who's obviously owning them and what position they're in. I mean, I've made 2 trades with Derrick Henry in the last 12 months. Yeah, about 12 months. 2 trades, I'll mention them to you. One was for a late first round pick because I was at the window and I was like, fuck it, let's try and have a go.
Very worth it.
The other one was for pick 205. Another one that I got him for as well. So he's been one that I've been targeting. I mean, look, everyone's been thinking, shit, the fall-off has to be soon for Derrick Henry. Can it be in the next sort of 12 months? Everyone says that every year about the old players coming through. I mean, what people say about Mike Evans still, like, when's his drop-off going to be? Maybe that's never. Maybe that's the same with Derrick Henry. Maybe he's just too good. Maybe he's going to beat Father Time and just retire in his own little way and retire at the top. You know what I mean? So he has been one I've been targeting. Alvin Kamara probably wouldn't be a bad one either. He won't cost you a hell of a lot in that shitty offense, but he'll churn out some decent points for you still. Look, James Conner, I'm not massive on at the moment, especially with that news that Trey Benson has come into the running back one split committee, I suppose. That's probably a running back committee at the moment, but again, might not be. It could just be a bit of smoke in the arse, pretty much. But outside of that, they're probably the 2 older running backs that I've sort of been targeting myself. And you're right. Running back is that position where you want to get right for fantasy football if you're contending, because, God, if you haven't got good running backs, then you're probably half a chance already to lose that league if you haven't got good running backs. I've seen plenty of teams in the past that have been rolling out just some average running backs, but their receivers and QBs are stacked, but they lose out on running back points.
Yeah, running back points are so consistent. I guess they probably offer the safest floor, especially with that workload that a lot of them do get. And I think looking at Derrick Henry, an absolute great target for contending teams. And I think even now with that recent 2-year extension, he probably is going to cost your team a first, but on paper, it might seem like a little bit too much, but you've got to remember you're a contending team. And if this guy gets you to win a championship, then who cares? At the end of the day, it's money well spent. And especially if you are contending, your picks are going to be worth a little bit later. Worth a little bit later in that first round. So let's jump on the flip side. Contending is pushed to the side. Rebuilding. When it comes to rebuilding, and I know we kind of touched on this very briefly, when it comes to guys that I'm trying to target, young wide receivers, I want to build my core around that because those guys have the longest shelf life compared to running backs. More often than not, they get second contracts with either their team or a different team at a higher clip, and also younger quarterbacks as well. If I can build my base around those guys, more than happy to go with that. What kind of rebuilding guys would you be targeting? And I'll actually throw one out first. We touched on him at the start of the show, Jordan Addison. That suspension, it might not seem a lot, but some people, they get a little bit fishy if they are kind of looking to contend about or looking to play for this year. Those 3 weeks, they might want to give that up, so they might be willing to move on to someone a little bit older and get those first 3 weeks, because it is important to start hot when you are looking to win for a chip. So it might be open up a little buying window for Jordan Addison with that suspension looming. It might be a big discount, but at the end of the day, we're looking for value wins. Even if it doesn't look like it now, in a few weeks' time, it could look like value to return to you. So what are some kind of guys that you're looking at with rebuilding before we jump on to the next thing?
Look, there's probably not too many players that I've been specifically targeting as such. I try, if I'm rebuilding, I'm moving on from anyone over 25 years of age. And I'm trying to get picks and or players in below the age of 25. It doesn't have to mean like you have to go and trade a couple of first round picks for Jackson Smith and Jigba, for example, or trying to get the best warrior, Malik Neighbours, for example, which break the bank to try and get these guys. But I'm trading guys that I can that I think has got high upside that don't cost a hell of a lot at the moment. There's plenty of tools out there to show you who those players are. I try and also use a trade calculator, dynasty trade calculator, just to see where the value currently is, because you get sometimes just bombarded with offers, and you think that half these offers look really, really good on paper, but when you actually put it into a dynasty calculator, just try and see where the value is. And a keep trade cut's always a good one, just to get a bit of an outlook on it. You might look at it and go, "Oh shit, I'm actually getting pumped in this trade. I'm the equivalency. I'm missing a first round pick in this deal. I need a first to come back to at least balance it out." There's no real particular players. I mean, that'll always change. There'll always be players on the go, depending on rosters and stuff like that. It'll always change depending on where people are at. But I just try and get people within, under at the age of 25 that have upside is probably where I sit with if I'm rebuilding. And to be honest with you, man, it's been a while since I've actually rebuilt. I've got 4 dynasty leagues at the moment that are sort of at the pointy end at the moment. So I will come back to the point where I have to rebuild again. It always happens. You can't stay up at the top for forever. But I've been so out of the loop of rebuilding at the moment. I haven't rebuilt in probably 2 or 3 seasons. So, and that was honestly just built on just getting in draft picks, man. Getting in draft picks and hitting on those draft picks is so crucial for dynasty football. It just is. I had 2 first-round picks and 3 or 4 second-round picks and hit on 80% of the picks that I had. Keep in mind, I did have Puka Nakua in the last round, which also does help. That also gives you a little advantage as well. But, it just shows that if you hit 80% of your picks and you've got 8 of them, or 75% of your picks and you've got 8, 9, 10 picks, you're going to get, 4 or 5 starters instantly, right, just like that.
And a good way to look at it, which is a lot of guys out there in the fantasy community, they like to see it this way, and we'll throw it out there. We mentioned it briefly a couple of months ago during our off-season shows. You have to look at trading as like the stock market. You want to get guys that they're at their lowest value at the moment, or lower value that you project with time will increase their value by a significant impact. And you keep winning in those little value deals, and sure enough, you're back at a place where you're going to be happy with. But moving on to the last thing here, Mav, with our Dynasty Primer, Dynasty startups. I mean, that is like the hotness. I feel like when April comes around, that rookie draft, I feel like a whole lot of Dynasty startups are starting at that point of time. I know myself, I probably joined a few too many at that point in time. When it comes to Dynasty startups, what do you kind of look at, and give us your thoughts when it comes to that?
Yeah, so dynasty startups, if you're starting a league or have started a league very recently or going to, startup leagues are like essential to get right, pretty much. Now, I've seen a lot of examples over the past where guys will just draft guys that are over 26, 27 years old who are trying to have a crack, but don't actually realize how bad that's actually going to end up for you in 12 months' time. And you're just struggling to try and get players in. You got no picks because you're trying to win. And then they just fall off a cliff, and then you just got nothing. So I try and get a bit of a healthy balance. I mean, the first 5 or 6 rounds of my startup leagues, I try and get players in between the age brackets of like 22 and 26 that are young, upcoming, have real high potential, and then just build around that. There's no real specific order I do it in terms of positions, but that's sort of how I like to start it off. Otherwise, you get into a real hole, man. You really do, and you get into a hole real quickly, and then you're suddenly just in the weeds. So, I think your startup drafts obviously are just crucial for setting up your team. I mean, you can get things wrong along the way. You can also draft young players that don't come up. I mean, I had a startup 5 years ago, for example, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire was my first round pick. He was the guy at the time that had massive raps on him. Everyone's like, this guy is like the bee's knees of running backs. He's at Kansas City. He's driving a real high price, and he had one good game that year. That was his first game of the year, and then nothing else after that. So, look, it does. You can look at it both ways, but drafting guys that are 28 plus and just getting Cooper Cup in at like around 9, around 10 after that, like it's just not going to help you out.
Best to build a younger core for sure. And one thing that I like to do, and probably the same with you too, Mav, quarterbacks, their value, especially in superflex leagues. Let's kind of look at it at that sense for now. Quarterbacks are worth so much in those leagues, like especially in startups. If you walk out of there without 2 or 3 younger quarterbacks, it's just going to cost you so much to try and get those guys. And it's pretty consensus. I feel like people just put those players on a pedestal, and they're just worth absolute gold at that point. So yeah, if you can start out with a couple of young QBs, even guys that JJ McCarthy this year, I feel like he was going in the 5th or 6th round of startups. Next year, depending on how he goes, Cam Ward, Trevor Lawrence, who was down to those guys now with kind of Herbert, where their value, but still where their value is now in the 4th or 5th round. Next year, they could well and truly be in those top 2 rounds, depending on how they go this year, if they do have a bounce back. So, and then all of a sudden, that value, your team overall, just skyrockets. So, get those young quarterback core, build those wide receivers out. And if I do go old with my startups, it's definitely going to be that running back position. I'll throw in a couple of old guys. If I'm looking to try and contend, I wouldn't mind getting CMC, just depending on that cost. Cost is everything at this point. But if you pick up a couple of late round running backs, Aaron Jones, James Conner, Alvin Kamara, I mean, you're not giving up too much on your roster. And if you've got your picks for the next year, you can kind of just fill those holes when you need to.
I've seen teams go ahead in their starts and pick up like guys like Josh Jacobs into like an Alvin Kamara, and you're like, really, man? Like it's just, you're just looking for the cliff already. You know what I mean? Like unless you've got like Travion Henderson sitting on the bench with Caleb Johnson and stuff like that. Like I get it. I get it, but Jesus, you're looking for that cliff really early. In 12 months' time, that's coming really quickly. So, just be very cautious on who you draft in your startups and their age demographic. I think that's always been a real key piece in my startups.
Yeah, and I guess just one last thing on the startups. Do you kind of like, do you play for you're trying to win straight away? You want to win next year? I know for myself, with startups, you usually need to pay 2 years up front to try and lock people in, so they're not going to be moving away all their picks and then they're just going to dip out after the 1 year. I'll try, if I can, depending on how the draft plays out, and this kind of goes back to our draft strategies show last night. You've got to stay fluid. You've got to take the best value that is there, and sometimes these contending pieces like these older running backs just kind of fall on your lap and make it a little bit too hard to. What's your kind of, I guess, target? Are you playing for the next year? What are you trying to do there?
It's a tough one, isn't it? I mean, I don't really care too much about winning in year one. There's a bigger picture than winning in year one. You try and build a team that is obviously capable of winning in year one, but is also capable of winning in year 2, year 3, year 4. You're looking at multiples, not just the 1 year. So, I'm very cautious in how I draft like that. It really doesn't bother me if I don't win year one. I don't want to trade multiple first round picks to try and win and suddenly just stuff everything up. I'm happy to play the slow approach and worry about the short future versus the immediate 12-month period.
Love it, mate. Love it. Well, that'll pretty much do us here for our Dynasty Primer. I mean, Mav, I'll just throw it to you quickly. Any kind of final thoughts on that before we close out and finish up with tonight?
No, not necessarily. I mean, again, Dynasty is such a fun game. It's probably my favorite. So, look, if you have a group of 10 to 12 blokes or women that want to play Dynasty and start up a league, a local league especially, I would definitely recommend it. It's a different beast, and once you're in, you can't get out. You'll get trapped. But yeah, outside of that, man, we'll continue again tomorrow night. We'll do a preseason sort of preview coming in, which is the first slate of I guess it's 16 games. So looking forward to just talking every team and sort of what we're looking forward to in those games, and then we might have a little surprise on Friday, but we'll see how that goes. Keep your eyes on socials, and we'll go from there, I suppose.
Yeah, we'll keep that little surprise under wraps. It's going to be very, very exciting. I know, yeah, we've all been buzzing about it and all the insight guys. So definitely going to be one to watch. And touching on that dynasty real quick, we'll probably look at having another insight startup sometime next year if you are struggling to kind of get into a league and fill those spots. Keep an eye out. Stick with us until next year, and we will open up some dynasty leagues. But we'll see you again tomorrow night, guys. That's for myself and Mav. That's the Insight NFL show. We'll be back tomorrow night at the same time. See you later.
Cheers.